Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Between the Sharks. We are back. We have returned from Power Tour, and I wanted to make a quick video because it was my first time going, and I went into it not knowing a lot of stuff. Not because I didn't look to find, some answers, but mostly because I couldn't find many answers. So we're gonna go with some real basic first-timer stuff. So first of all, Power Tour is a week-long event hosted by Hot Rod Magazine, created by Hot Rod Magazine, I suppose. 5 cities, 5 days, Monday through Friday. Usually the events take place at a speedway. Sometimes they take place at other large areas. In Colombia this year, it was at a state fairground. It's thousands of cars. Some travel with it for multiple days, some travel all the days, and some people just show up locally to their own town's event if they happen to be nearby. There's no real rules. You can do whatever you like. I honestly don't know exactly when they announced the route. I just kept checking, and I think it's about 6 months in advance, and when they announce the route, you can usually start buying your tickets or passes. Now, the route starts every year where it ended the previous year. So it started in Atlanta this year and ended in Bristol, which means the first event will be in Bristol, and it will travel who knows where from there. So maybe it's in your region, maybe it's not. A lot of people travel to it, start on the route, and then finish and go back home from all over the place. So if you want to participate in the show, they sell single-day passes, multi-day passes, the long hauler pass, which is a 5-day all-show pass, and a gold and platinum version of the long hauler pass. As far as I know the gold and platinum come with certain perks, parking in the venue and stuff like that. What I do know is neither one of those got anybody out of the traffic and into the venue faster. May have gotten them a better spot in the venue, but not necessarily on the road. Now, as far as I can tell, even if you drove your old car to Power Tour and you didn't really want to park it in the show necessarily, and you wanted to park it in spectator parking, which at certain venues, those were overlapping things, the spectators are free, which is pretty great. You don't necessarily even need to pay money to park and go enjoy the event. However, there are a lot of sponsors and things, and if you like entering raffles and seeing all of that stuff, I do think you need a long hauler pass to enter certain ones, long hauler or above. Just saying, not 100% sure on that because it's not my bag, but you probably ought to know. So I bought my long hauler pass long before I understood how this whole thing was even supposed to work. I was just committed. I knew I wanted to go. I wanted to try it out and see what it was all about. So one of the things I was having trouble with is that information comes out long after the passes go on sale. So I purchased my passes, and then I was kind of looking to see if they had route information or schedules or maps or anything like that. And those came out much closer to the event. The trick is, it's huge. Thousands of people, thousands of cars, which means if you want to book your hotel rooms, you need to do it in advance, and in advance of the schedules. And one of the things that I really had trouble ciphering out was how it actually worked, traditionally speaking, because really you can make it whatever you want. But traditionally, the idea is you stay in the town where the event is. For example, on this last tour, day 1 was in Atlanta. So you go to the show, you go to your hotel room, you stay overnight, you check out, and you get on the road and you drive with the pack on their route, if you want to follow that route, to the next event. You go to the next event, it starts at noon usually, noon to 6. Once the event's over or you're done with it, you go to your hotel, you stay the night, you get up and you leave. It does kind of make sense to follow that route because hotel check-in times and check-out times sort of lend themselves to that. These are by far the largest car shows I have ever seen. Literally thousands and thousands of cars. Once you're in the event, there's plenty to see and do. You can walk around, check out cars. There's a midway with sponsors. You're seeing this on YouTube, so you probably watch some other YouTube channels, and there are a lot of YouTube folks that do the, Power Tour. Some of them are with sponsor booths, and you can go wait in line and meet them. Sometimes everybody's just wandering around, if that's something that you're into. A lot of the events are at raceways, so they'll have drag racing or autocross or both. If also that's stuff you want to enter into, I think you need a helmet. You do have to sign up early, but it's something to be aware of, that it's another opportunity while you're on the Power Tour. In addition to the shows, the driving is just as much a part of it, right? So The routes are usually set up to be about a 4-hour drive between the previous venue and the next venue. They're circuitous. It's a lot of added driving, and usually there's a shortcut if you want to just kind of skip that pageantry. But it's fun because everywhere you go, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of cars in line. Every gas station becomes a car show. People along the route bring their classic cars and park them at the end of their driveways if they're not on Power Tour, and basically wave, and so you see their cars and they see your cars. People have this tradition of throwing Hot Wheels cars out to little kids watching. Everybody waves at everybody. It's really friendly. If anybody's broken down, several cars pull over, so there is this whole camaraderie about it. But it does come with its challenges because it does make the drive significantly longer usually between venues. The drives are a mixture of stop and go traffic at little towns and highway speed stuff, 60s to 70 miles, like even part of it was on I-20 this year. But most of it's 2-lane back roads, and it's a really beautiful drive. But that does mean I heard horror stories that I didn't get caught in of traffic backing up at the stop signs or in construction zones. And you have to be prepared for that because that can indeed very much slow you down. But maybe sometimes for some people it's the journey, not the destination. Now, if you choose to travel that route, Hot Rod Power Tour does do a great job of supplying not only written directions, but a link to Google Maps that, if you put it into your phone, will have points along the way and basically keep you going with the traffic from the car show. But it's in the traffic of the car show. And as good of a job as they do with it, they're clearly not checking with municipalities about construction times and whatever, because it was an issue on one drive this year. But hey, you got to take the crunchy with the smooth, I suppose. Now, I chose to take a car that was pretty trustworthy. This truck has been really good to me. I've owned it for a long time. But there were some things about the driving that I really did not expect. Specifically, how bad the traffic was going to be getting into the venue. Gang, this is insane. There's still as much traffic coming in as there's trying to get out. So the Power Tour publishes a route and a suggested leave time, and I would say for the most part, well, a large chunk of traffic does indeed leave around that time. So you're following in a great group of people, which is sort of the fun of it, but everyone sort of gets to the venue around the same time too. So what that creates is a massive traffic jam. And we appear gridlocked by exiting traffic. Security's just got everybody stopped, and there's like a steady stream getting out of here. I thought being fashionably late was going to be helpful today, but I'm a little bit over this. I think we're now 20 minutes just sitting outside the venue, not moving. And what I don't understand is, by design, no matter how many entrances there are, they're only using one at every venue. It's published on the map, it's this whole thing. And so if your car's all ready to go and you can drive 200 miles in a mixture of stop and go traffic and highway speeds and then back to stop and go traffic, what seemed to kill everybody or really stress the cars was you've just been driving for almost 3 or 4 hours, you've done about 200 to 250 miles, and then you have to idle and sit there for some time between 45 minutes and an hour and change. Yeah, that note says in line to enter lot at 12:40, parked at 1:35. It's a long time to just be idling. And that will test any heating system. After the block is completely heated up, to sit there and idle, and there is nowhere to go. And so that's when you start seeing people driving with their hoods up, or cars getting pulled over and pushed off to the side because they make it all the way to the venue to break down in the traffic to get in the venue. And you know, I sailed into Atlanta, and that was the one freebie that I got. And it's hit or miss. I feel like there's no way to predict it. Some venues I showed up early, some venues I showed up really late, and I ran into the same problem no matter what. And that can be a little frustrating, because there I was, like, I had done the thing and I'd had a great drive, and I'm sitting for 45 minutes with the heater on, just trying to make sure it doesn't overheat, because by the time we got there, it was pretty warm out. Now, I'm from the Southeast, so I'm not going to complain about mid-June weather being warm. In fact, it wasn't even that bad this year. It was kind of nice, but it is something to think about, because once you get into the venue, you're going to be walking around an unshaded area that is most likely 99% asphalt. So it is super, super hot. So fill your truck with, or car, or whatever you're driving, have a lot of water and stuff like that, because the vending lines are out of control and there are not nearly enough food and water vendors for the amount of people. Lines, baby. But they allow you to bring everything in the world in. So bring a cooler, bring snacks, bring food, bring a grill. I don't care. Like, all that stuff, just be aware of it, because, you know, it's gonna get warm. Now, we had spectacular weather this year. Not a drop of rain. At least I didn't see one. So I feel like that would fundamentally shift the event. There were days that everybody was parked on grass, and I don't know what kind of mud pit that would turn into, or how they handle a lightning storm or whatever else. So it's completely unpredictable. It's weather. I mean, you may know a little bit in advance, but whatever coincides with the day's event is what you're going to be dealing with. So just be aware of that. We had wonderful weather. It was hot. You just needed to stay hydrated. The cars mostly handled it pretty well. I keep bringing it up. I just bring it up because I never expected the problem area to be entering the venue. I figured they anticipated thousands of cars arriving in a short amount of time. So I learned there's two schools of thoughts on the hotels as well. So, well, three really. Most people do indeed plan ahead, because in a concentric circles coming out from the venue, the hotels do get booked up, and they do get outrageously expensive, because the amount of people on the Power Tour around these speedways versus the amount of hotels typically available, they sell out, right? That said, when they sell out, the further away you go, you're still going to run into plenty of people who are on the Power Tour. So it's unlikely that you manage to find yourself isolated. However, in Rockingham specifically, as an example, I couldn't find a place to stay anywhere nearby. So I continued on to the next venue the night before. And there I met a bunch of people who go ahead of the event. And basically they stay in the hotel room. They have a leisurely morning. They wake up, they go to the event, and then they drive afterwards. And if you check out of the hotel at 11 or request a late checkout, and the event starts at noon, well, you're kind of right on time. And those guys seem to have a little bit more of a chill atmosphere. There were plenty of people, but the parking lots were not quite as rowdy. So if you want rowdy, stick with the event, I guess is what I'm saying. If you want it to be a little quieter but not be on your own, if you go ahead, there's a whole group of people that are doing exactly that. And I think the hotels are cheaper than night ahead, just if that matters to anybody, because, you know, it's hotels. Once they start getting booked, they just keep raising the prices. I will say the culture at the hotels is, I mean, it really depends on who happens to be around you and how riff-raffy they are, you know what I'm saying? But generally speaking, most people just set up lawn chairs or camping chairs and sit by their cars. So it's basically just a car show. If you want to walk around and talk to people about their cars, like, that's what it is, and it's really fun. I will say that bringing a bicycle along, because I had the pickup truck, I covered a whole lot more ground, not only at the shows, but at the hotels. And I really enjoyed it. So if you've got a little pit bike or something like that, then maybe it's something that you want to consider throwing in if you have the capacity to do it. So cost-wise, if you get a long hauler badge thing, it's only a couple $100, and for what it is, it's well worth it. It is an inexpensive event. Everything else is hotels. Where do you want to stay? How far in advance do you book? How far do you have to go to get there? Fuel costs. I mean, that's road trip vacation prices. There's not, you can calculate it. I would budget around $225 a night, and then that should average out along your way. That's what I saw. It'll change year over year. It'll change city over city, but you know, that is what it is, right? So one of the biggest things I learned about it though is there's so many ways to do Power Tour, and for me the most enjoyable parts were the parts I took the least seriously. In the middle of it, I got kind of caught up trying to wake up with the crowd, roll with the group, do all the things, get into the show on time, get my little badge stamped. If that's what you want to do, by all means do it. Ultimately, what it turned out to be for me was a bit more stressful. It's a disaster already. It's completely insane. So I've made up my mind. I mean, what it is cool, but I'm gonna go park at the hotel and walk over because it's about 1.5 miles, and it's gonna take me less time to walk and walk back than to get in and out, guaranteed. And then I just chilled out after that, and I feel like that's the biggest thing. I think the most important thing about Power Tour to me that I learned is it's a great reason to get in your car and go drive it and go meet like-minded people. Everyone is so nice, everybody's so cool. I didn't meet a sourpuss on the entire tour, which is really great, but it's just a reason to take a road trip. I think I would have just as much fun if I chose 5 cities and decided to do a road trip in one of my old cars, but I don't know that I would. You know what I mean? Like, Power Tour is a great motivator, but in my experience, the shows got a little bit overwhelming, or almost like seeing a great art museum 5 days in a row. Once you're starting to see thousands of cars that are all pretty incredible, that just made a 4-hour drive and then idled for an hour, like daily driver stuff that's also hot roddy, your eyes kind of glaze over. And another analogy I use was like seeing Metallica, or it's like seeing Metallica 5 nights in a row. The first night you go, it's huge and it's spectacular and it's crazy, but by day 5 you kind of know what's coming, and it all sort of just... So I guess for me, it was once I realized the show was even secondary, that like just sort of being in the big overall picture was the fun part. And I think I would definitely do Power Tour again with way less pressure. Maybe even looking to see if there's cities in between, or you know, do a little bit more sightseeing that's not directly related to Power Tour, and you know, maybe doing some research. I did none. I just followed the crowd and had a really good time. But there's so many versions of that to do that I think being open to it was something that I had to learn along the way, because I just kind of dove in, and it in the middle or late middle, I think I'd overstressed myself just trying to keep up, and the hours on the drive and sort of the getting there in traffic and kind of sweating it more than I should have. I should have just pulled over, like opened an ice cold water and just watched everybody drive by for an hour. I had nowhere to be and nothing to do. Like, that's the fun of it. And I guess the last thing is you got to understand that Power Tour welcomes all vehicles, makes, models, years. If you don't have an old car and you have a more modern car and you want to drive that instead, completely allowed. Go join the group. There's no exclusivity here. I think they don't allow rental cars, but I think that's an insurance thing. Outside of that, you know, I chose this truck because it's fun and it's reliable and it's my daily driver, basically. But, you know, spend some time thinking about it. Understand that whatever you take is going to need to be able to drive many miles and then idle waiting to get into the show, and I would anticipate at least 45 minutes. You may get lucky and it's not like that, but you want whatever it is to be able to do that. So whether you want to go buy a car off the internet and just see if it'll make it, which sounds like a ton of fun, or that makes you go, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the new Mustang. Or hell, the new minivan. It doesn't matter. If you want to go along and be part of the group, go along and be part of the group, you know? It really is a good time. It can be as relaxing or as challenging as you make it, because the routes are a couple 100 miles each day. In addition, idling in traffic is kind of a thing and, you know, can create some trouble. And then in addition, the shows are so large, you could walk for hours in the hot sun, and that's also pretty rigorous. And then if you decide to hang out at the hotels into the evening, it can be long, tiring days and a lot of fun. But, you know, my recommendation is you pick and choose. You can do this as leisurely as you like. Take the things you enjoy and move right on. I think that's one of the most important takeaways for me, is that there's a lot of ways to enjoy it, and you just have to approach it with how you feel, either on a particular day or overall, because it can be very strenuous, in my opinion, if you just try to keep up with the group day after day after day. But if that's your bag, man, by all means, get after it. I hope this helps maybe inform anyone out there who's thinking about doing Power Tour. I'm 100% encouraging you to do it. If you think that this is something that sounds like fun, driving old cars or being around old cars or seeing the world's largest old car shows, as far as I can tell, then by all means do it, or stop by at least one day and just check it all out. But I do think there is something to traveling with it at least a day or two it's kind of a unique experience, and it's absolutely worth trying. So good luck on your projects out there. Hope to see you out on Power Tour next year. And until then, well, we got some cars to build, so we'll see you next time on Between the Sharks.